The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
Welcome to On the Mat. I am Kyle Klingman of Track Wrestling, along with our own golden lion of the sport, Andy Hamilton, also of Track Wrestling. I don't like that we missed a week.
It's been a while.
Little bit. Yeah, it's been too long. I'd like to get back into the studio. We have a new studio set up, and I'm just glad that we didn't skip another week and that we have a guest that's going to bring us back in style. Yianni Diakomihalis, you lined him up. And he's really the guest that makes sense for this show because of what he did at the 2019 U.S. Open.
And what he's got coming up, too, right?
Yeah. Beat the Streets, has a big match there, had tons of big matches at the U.S. Open. And when you look at who he beat, all the way from an Olympian in Frank Molinaro, beats Zane Rutherford in the finals, beats his teammate, two-time NCAA champion Jordan Oliver in the semifinals. I think everyone's having Yianni fever right now, and for good reason. He's the star of the sport right now.
Yeah, there's just a lot to like about him. I mean, very innovative and fun to watch, and captivating personality. So much about Yianni that's magnetic.
And think about all the times you've had to conduct interviews through the course of your journalistic life. He's what you want. He's a guy that gives you stuff and is willing to give you stuff and isn't threatened by answering questions in an honest way. And I think that's what any journalist would want out of someone when you're asking questions, is that I don't think we're trying to pry. We just want to know because we're fascinated how you got to this level, and he's willing to give you insight on how he got to that level. So we get to pick his brain on how he got to this high level. Two-time cadet world champion. He's already a two-time NCAA champion, and he's only a sophomore, has 2 more years to go. Huge upside for this guy.
Yeah, it's huge upside, and it's already, he's climbing, right? I mean, he's
there.
It's a better way of putting it.
Yeah. He's there and is only going to get better.
I mean, we're talking upside, and the guy, if he goes and wins a world title this year, would you be completely shocked?
I wouldn't be. I really wouldn't be. And you take that, I guess I wasn't completely shocked, but when Kyle Snyder won it at 19, I was surprised. It was, he comes off a second place finish at Nationals that year, goes in and beats Jake Varner, our reigning Olympic champion, and then he wins a world championship. Yeah, that took me off guard a little bit. But as you saw down the line, he backed it up, and you saw the writing was on the wall. I just didn't think Kyle Snyder was going to do it at 19. And so I think Yianni's 19 right now. Is that right? I don't know his exact age. He's either 19 or 20, but he's in that time frame where we keep seeing this over and over and over, Andy. We keep talking about the youth movement, and we're in this great era of wrestling. We absolutely are, and the statistics, the results are backing that up time and time again, just over and over. Dayton Fix doing the same thing, winning the U.S. Open as well. These guys are as good as ever at a young age. And the storyline for the next 8 years, again, is how long can they take it? What's the window? Are they going to peak at 25? Because we've seen good guys like Bill Zadek go all the way to 33, and he reached his peak later. When's their peak going to be? And I think that's going to be a fun storyline for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it used to be peak age was, 26, 27? I think in the United States, while other countries, you're seeing guys win in their early 20s. It's taken us a little longer, and regional training centers helped accelerate the path. That and the access to so much more technique at the tap of your keyboard. And I'm sure we'll talk to Yianni about some of these things, about, his experiences at the Finger Lakes Regional Training Center, when he was in high school. And also, the guy studies wrestling inside and out.
We talk about the technique, and the RTC certainly has a lot to do with that. But I think there's a mental component of there's more access to the mental side of how to get to that level quicker. And I look from our vantage point, I don't remember ever seeing memes or tweets about, hey, this is a great quote or a mental frame of mind. And now we're bombarded with it and you see the path all of the time. I don't know that I knew what the path was in high school. I'm not saying I had the courage to take it necessarily, but it takes a lot of effort to get to that point. But the mental path is laid out a lot more clear now than it ever used to be.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really struck me was being out at the training center 2 years ago for the first time for an Olympic or for a world team training camp and seeing David Carr wrestling with James Green and Jason Nolf, and Gable Stevenson was rolling with Nick Wisdowski and Kyle Snyder, and talking to Bill Zadek about that experience for those guys. And it's not so much just that they get their hands on guys at a higher level. It's also they get a chance to be around Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Snyder and see how they handle their day-to-day business and what goes into being a pro, so to speak. And so I think that you're spot on with that assessment, Kyle. It's the mental side of it, and also picking up how elite level performers, what goes into their day-to-day process.
Because remember what we said after the 2018 World Championships when Kyle Snyder gave his post-silver medal performance interview. We both said we can learn a lot from that guy. We both came away saying that guy is light years ahead of where we could ever think of being at that age.
Or even maybe where we are now.
He was teaching us.
Yeah.
And we came away saying that here's a guy teaching us. And I think we're going to feel the same way about Yianni, that he's going to say things and going to give us insight that regardless of the age, he's going to be able to teach us. And I think that's the interesting part, is how do you make the fast track to be 19 years old, be Kyle Snyder, be Yianni Diakomihalis, and be at this level mentally. It's really remarkable that we're in this era. And RTCs, you just keep going back to it. You just think about it. And I always go back to the Jay Jaggers quote. He said, in an RTC practice, you could have a high school kid, you could have a guy on a college program who's a national champion, you can have an elite level college guy, all in the same round robin working together. And it's just a formula that is pretty easy to see how it would work. But to be able to have that formula for the United States, it's really taking us off. And it's the reason we are where we are right now.
Yeah, and I think following up on our previous points, I mean, one of the things about Yianni is the guy's driven to be great. Doesn't want to just win. He wants to be great. And by that, I mean, most probably 19, 20-year-olds right now are thinking about winning an NCAA title. Yianni's thinking about winning a world title this year. Yianni's thinking about winning an Olympic gold in 2020, not wait until 2024 in Paris. Like, the guy is driven to make it happen now, and his mind is constantly thinking about wrestling. And that's why he sleeps in the Friedman Center on occasion, and he can probably tell you a lot about greats of the sport from the 80s and 90s and what they did and their techniques that made him successful and how he implements that into his game. And we just see, I mean, he's got something too that's probably a little bit of a God-given gift to be able to feel something. You talk about guys that see something once and they don't need to drill it 1,000 times to make it work. I mean, you heard him in the mix zone the other day talk about that move that he hit on Oliver in the semifinals, where he basically did a headstand and caught the legs and scored takedown there. Key sequence of the match was just something he saw one time that Ben Askren did it on video and thought, you know what, I'm going to get taken down here, so I might as well try it. And
yeah,
made it happen. I mean, that's not everybody can do that.
Absolutely not afraid to get out there and experiment and try in competition. And I think that's what separates him, is that he's not going to be afraid to get out there and say, hey, this is just because this is a match doesn't mean I can't try it. I think he will do those things, and he's proven he has. And just back to what you said, hey, he's more than a guy with upside. He's here now and he wants to win in the moment. And I tell you, it wouldn't surprise me if he does make a world championship team. He certainly set himself up well. He has a bye to the finals of Final X and is going to be on that ladder. He's going to be number 1 or 2 in the United States right now. And everyone's chasing Yianni right now at that weight class. And that weight class is loaded.
Yeah.
I mean, top to bottom, that's going to be the weight class where you say, this probably has the most talent depth in the United States is at 65 kilograms, and he's on top of the heap.
And that's one where U.S. could use a little bit of a jolt, right? I mean, the last couple of years hasn't been a real productive weight at the World Championships. You know, Americans have won medals, up and down the lineup at every other weight, right? I mean, I think that every other weight has captured a medal the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right about that. You go back to James Green has won numerous world medals. He's won 2015. He got a bronze, and then silver in 2017.
70 kilos, though.
Yeah. So we're just going through who's won medals, and we're just saying that 65 kilograms is the one that has been out the last couple of years. Other than that, you go up and down. Thomas Gilman got a silver in 2017. Joe Colon got 61 kilogram bronze this last year. James Green we talked about. Jordan Burroughs, of course. Kyle Dake has a gold medal. David Taylor has a gold medal. Jaden Cox has a gold medal. Kyle Snyder has a gold medal. And Gwiz has 2 bronzes. So the United States has done exceedingly well at every weight class. And they've done well at this weight class, but they just haven't gotten that medal recently.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been since 2006 since the United States won a medal at this weight class. It's Bill Zadek's world title.
And he's our national team coach right now. So, yeah, I mean, it's not for lack of depth in there. We've had some good guys. And
come close.
Yeah.
You know, Schwab was in a bronze medal match. And
in 2007, yeah.
Molinaro was in a bronze medal match at the Olympics. Been some opportunities in there, but just that's really weird because to your point, there've been a lot of really good wrestlers.
Yeah. And as we look at the U.S. Open, I'm giving them credit. Here's the one thing that they did right that college needs to implement, and I don't know why more people don't pick up on it, is they mixed and matched the weight order to make it the most appealing for the fans. They put Yianni at the very last match, and then they said, hey, we're gonna sequence this out and put the best matches at the very end. That's smart. Why can't college pick up on that?
They have for the NCAA Championship.
Well, but they go around the horn.
Okay.
They go around the horn, which is
Don't you need some good matches at the beginning too?
Yeah.
So if you're on television in particular?
For sure you do, but you can still mix and match.
Sure.
You can still put things and say, all right, here's a good formula. Let's not just do it because it happens to be in sequence of chronologically of the weight. Let's mix and match and give the fans the best opportunity. And I think they did that too. I mean, Kyvan's a big name. He was the first matchup, but he's also the second heaviest weight class. So there you go. You mix and match. So kudos to USA Wrestling for doing that. That's smart. And you want the best matches. You want your main events to be your main events. You want them at the end. You don't put Yianni at the third match just because he's the third weight up. You put Yianni at the end. And they did that. Super smart on USA Wrestling's part. So my salute to USA Wrestling. NCAA, I hope they pick up on that because it's a great concept, a great formula. Not only for the NCAA championships, but do it for dual meets, do it for any type of tournament that you want just to increase the fan friendliness and the entertainment value.
So NCAA championships, quarterfinals, would you start at 25 or would you?
I'd mix and match.
Would you?
I'd do the same thing with the quarters. Yeah. I mean, because it's for TV.
Okay.
I'd do it quarterfinals, semis. I mean, I'd do it any time, but the first and second round, whatever you want to do. But quarters and semis and finals, for sure.
You're challenging the establishment, Kyle.
Well,
I like it.
I just think it's the right thing to do. And it's a point that I've beat into the ground, but you don't put Conor McGregor fight at the beginning just because he might be lighter than a heavyweight. There's a reason he's the main event. And so college wrestling can do the same thing. So what I'm doing is I'm applauding USA Wrestling and saying, I hope that you'll pick up on some of those things, college wrestling, and do what USA Wrestling did at the US Open, because it's very smart. And I'm assuming they'll do it at Final X as well. I think they do sequence the order and put it in the order. And the same thing they'll do at the Beat the Streets. The headliner is going to be Askren against Burroughs. And
Yianni Bajrang before that, right?
Yeah, there you go. So you have that opportunity. So kudos to them on that. And I think we have to just give props to a guy that has been probably our number one mailbag contributor, Scott Beck. I think the situation he's talked about where you're going out of bounds and you get that the caution on one, which you've seen some of those situations.
Yeah, and I think of Scott Beck every time I do.
I know. We're going to have to call that situation the Beck. Can we just, for our purposes, and we'll fill people in, but that's the Beck situation. Because he's said to me, I got to make sure I give Andy enough ammo because I see these situations all the time. And he said, I don't feel like I explained it well enough. But I just said to him, I said, Andy sees these situations all the time and says, hey, I think of Scott Beck. And now I know what he's talking about.
I don't see him all the time, but I see him on occasion.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'll watch a Continental Championships, I might see it a time or two. And
I saw it twice at the U.S. Open. I can't remember, but I saw it there, and I'm like, okay, now I know what Scott's talking about with that situation. Other things you picked up from the U.S. Open.
Fill in our listeners if they didn't hear that episode. He's talking about where you're up two.
You're up two.
And you're on the edge, and you can take a caution in one instead of giving up the takedown.
Correct.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it would just be a way for you to avoid getting taken down. And of course, the last takedown in some scenarios will win the match. If it's a 4-point move, it wouldn't matter in that situation. But let's say it's, like you say, 4-2, and everything's equal. If you go out of bounds, you give up the 1 point. You wouldn't have that last takedown to win. Yep. And again, it's another situation where if you're a casual fan, it's hard to explain some of these things. And one of the areas where international wrestling is a little complicated, but I still think we have a good product right now that's quite entertaining.
100%.
Yeah. Anything else you gleaned from the U.S. Open that you liked? I know there was a lot to take in, but few things I have off the top of my head, but I want to make sure that you had a forum to talk about what you saw, Andrew.
No, I like Yianni was the star of the show for certain, and going up and down, I think impressed with Cody Brewer. Fix and Gilman, that's going to be a dogfight. That's going to be a lot of fun if we see 2 or 3 more of those in Lincoln, possibly. If Gilman can take care of business down in Raleigh. Surprised at Ryan Deacon. Yeah. I mean, terrific tournament that he had. You look at where he was in the middle of the college season. He finished 6th at NCAA championships.
Man.
And then he wins. Yeah. Now he's sitting in Final X. He's on the national team.
Who would have thought that?
Stunning the way that match ended.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how that happened. James Green's kind of up against it a little bit now, having to go through the challenge tournament, and have to encounter Jason Nolf and some other guys there as well. I think you look back to rewinding on Gilman, it was a 1-point loss that he had in the bronze medal match. Yeah. And now he's put himself through, he wins that match. He's sitting in Final X. Now he's got to go to the Open. He's got to go back now down to Raleigh and win the tournament there and come through that and then beat Fix 2 out of 3.
Well, one of the things that struck me, and when you look at the Greco side, the one thing is we're looking at things that I took away is Lucas Sheridan got tech fall by Giangelo Hancock in the finals. And the Army program has established itself as the premier program for Greco-Roman. I just liked it when the coaches came up to him afterward, got tech fall, and just said, hey, you have to trust the process. And they weren't mad at him. They weren't saying, hey, you need to do something better. Guy got tech fall, got to the finals. It was a step. And he just said, hey, this is a process. And I just thought that's really good coaching, because too many times you can see these coaches come off the mat with a guy and just say, you should have done this, this, and this. And they just took a completely positive spin to the whole thing and just said, here's someone who didn't score a point, got overwhelmed in the match, but their first comments were trust the process. And you just knew that they were going to get him in that program and they were going to carry on. And I'll tell you what, the Army has a great process right now.
You make that comment, and I think back to a book I read about Rick Pitino at one point, where he talked about one of the best times to criticize is after success. One of the best times to praise is after defeat. And from a mentality standpoint, I think, you looking over at my bookshelf, and there's a book over there a couple Gable books over there, and he was that same way, right? I mean, that he was a master at not just motivating, but also getting inside somebody's mind and figuring out what the right buttons to push are. And, you did an interview recently with Jesse Whitmer where he talked about leading up to his NCAA title run as a fifth-year senior in 1997, where he became a starter as a fifth-year senior for the first time. And one of the things he talked about was a loss to David Morgan there, where he had been almost majored. And by the time Gable got done talking about the match, Whitmer wondered if he'd won the match or lost. He'd forgotten he'd lost the match because Gable was so positive. And so I think that's cool. You picked up on that.
Yeah, because how many times do you fall into just maybe the coaching mentality that you see in movies, or just pick up on something where you just chew a guy out and just say, hey, you got to get better, or you're picking up on things that, of course, you got to get better. You just got Tech fault 9-0, but they looked at it as this complete positive that he got to that point. The coaches probably knew that he wasn't going to win that match against a superior opponent, but they had got him to that level, and they know there's another level to go. And maybe he's 10 steps away from Jangelo Hancock, and maybe the next time it's score a point. And maybe the next time it's keep it close and make it a 1-point match. And then maybe the next time you get over the hump and you win a match in the best 2 out of 3. But they're smart enough, and you just saw the results from the Army program. There's a reason they're doing a really good job there. So kudos to the Army program. They got it rolling on the Greco side. And then the women's side, there was some interesting happenings there too. I just think that you saw some past world medalists that didn't medal last year, Becca Leathers being one. You saw the return of Allie Reagan after having a injury last year. They came back and they won the U.S. Open because they had to go through the process because they did not have that world medal. And you just saw some things out of them where there's a reason that they are world medalists, even if it was a couple years ago. And Allie Reagan looked sharp at times. I think she'll even tell you, hey, there was just maybe a few jitters going in there, and for good reason, not really knowing how the injury was going to affect her. But she won the U.S. Open and is sitting in a pretty good spot.
Good to see her back out there.
Yeah.
And especially where you talked about last fall, where we wonder if she's going to compete again. Neck injuries are serious business, especially in this sport. And to see her back out there and having success, that's awesome to see.
GS women team has a good team. I think they're deep.
Yeah.
And we talk about Yianni, where you say, would it surprise you if Yianni wins? It wouldn't surprise me if the women can get over the hump and win a championship. They won one world championship. I think it was in 99. They won the women's world team championship. I think they're on the cusp right now. I think they have the team that they can do it.
Yeah, well, I can't remember all the exacts of how I laid it out last year in Budapest, but I mean, it wasn't all that unrealistic a year ago. If and these are hypotheticals, of course, but if Helen Maroulis is healthy and it's Helen Maroulis of 2017 and she rolls through the tournament, if Allie Reagan is healthy and it's Allie Reagan reaching the world finals like she did the previous 2 years, and then I think it's like maybe one more match goes their way and they're right there. They're like Jakara Winchester or Forrest Molinari winning a medal match or something like that, where they would have equaled Japan's point total.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were, I don't know, remember what it was, 50 points back, but it wasn't like they're light years behind and you can't see a path to where this could happen for them. It could happen for them this year, no doubt, I think.
Yeah, and especially when you're losing the most dominant wrestler potentially across any style in Helen Maroulis, and just what she did last year or 2 years ago at 2017 and just blitzing everyone, and then she sustains a head injury, and then it didn't work out for her in 2018. But if you get the Helen that we had, even from those 3-year window where she won championships for 3 consecutive years, you get an Allie Reagan who's medaling, like you say, Forrest Molinari wins one more match and medals. This team's good.
Yeah. I mean,
it's all there.
Yeah, and hopefully we get to see the best version of Helen coming through the rest of this Olympic cycle and beyond, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, you just hope that they can put their best team on the mat, whatever that is. You hope they can put their best team on the mat. But I mean, you look at the depth. I mean, to speak to the depth, look at Haley Agello here at the Olympics was what she was out in front of the Olympic champ with like a minute and a half to go, I think, minute and a half to go. And the match got away from her. And so, but you're sitting there thinking like after Rio, all right, like she's got a really bright future and she makes the world team the next year. And now there's a lot of depth at her weight classes. What, she finished fourth, I think, out the Open.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
yeah.
I don't think that speaks to, what's going on with Haley Agello. I think it speaks to what's going on with the depth in the United States right now, that we're starting to see some young ladies that were on the verge of winning world medals that are having their hands full making teams now.
Yeah. And that's good for the depth. And what we're talking about, all the women who didn't get medals last year, you still have that crop of women. Tamara Mensah-Stock got a bronze. You have Sarah Hildebrandt got a silver, and I think she's going to get a gold medal at some point. I think she's on the rise. Adeline Gray is a gold medalist. You just go through that list of what you still have coming back.
Yeah.
Boy, what a solid team we have coming for the women's side. So, and I still think there's some upside with the Greco team. I think Giangelo Hancock can be a star and win a medal, if not a gold medal. We've seen the writing on the wall. He just has to clean up a few things, and I think he can do that. Adam Kuhn, returning silver medalist. You have some guys in the
Bay.
Yeah, Kamal Bay is fun to watch, and had a shootout there with Patrick Martinez. So there's going to be some fun matches and some fun wrestlers on all sides that we get to watch at the World Championships, and it might be headlined by Yianni Diakomihalis, who we have coming up next. Our guest today, two-time NCAA wrestling champion from Cornell University. He's only a sophomore, has 2 years of eligibility remaining, two-time cadet world champion, and recently won the U.S. Open at 65 kilograms. Yianni Diakomihalis, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Great, man. What went into deciding to do the U.S. Open? I know it's quick turnaround from the NCAA championships, but how'd you prepare for that tournament?
I coming off the national tournament, I wasn't really pleased with my performance, and I had a lot of things I could improve on. So, I had the time to get ready, and I had, a lot of really good guys to prepare for. So, it was a lot of things to focus on, and I tried to narrow it down to the things that were going to make me wrestle my best and, continuously get better in my positions.
Did you prepare as far as just preparing for opponents and knowing who you were going up against? Was there an actual process that you scouted opponents and figured out their tendencies?
I mean, a little bit, but, especially leading up to the Open, my coaches were really focused on getting my wrestling, 100% to where I needed to be first. And then, maybe the week of, we started doing a little game planning for some of those guys. But for the most part, it was just focusing on, getting my positions perfect so that I always score from there.
Yianni, I think sometimes we forget that guys like you're still in college, you still have classes, you still have finals coming up. If I'm not mistaken, finals week at Cornell is the same week as the Trials Challenge tournament. Was that going to present any logistical challenges for you from a classwork finals crossing over into wrestling standpoint?
I mean, I lucked out because I've got that bye to Final X, but I know a lot of our dudes like Vito Arujá, Andrew Barry, those guys, they're just, especially them, it's their first year at Cornell. They're just getting through their first Cornell finals week and then got to hit a turnaround straight to the World Team Trials and, wrestling arguably one of the biggest tournaments of their, life. So it's something tough, but, our guys do a great job balancing school and wrestling. And, I think that they're going to wrestle really well, even regardless of the situation.
Was Cornell your only option for college? Did you really look at other colleges to attend?
I mean, in all honesty, I knew Cornell was the place for me. I had a great relationship with the coaches, and I loved, being at Cornell. I loved being in Ithaca, and I knew that at Cornell I had the opportunity to be a great wrestler and, have a successful future after my wrestling career. And, Cornell is one of the only places I believe where in my opinion, Cornell is the only place that you can have a great wrestling program and have great coaches and wrestlers around you and go to a, such a great school like Cornell.
What is it about Rob Cole that is magnetic and he's able to not only draw the best out of you, but really raise the level of a program? You've been around him now for a long time. What's it like to be under Rob Cole now as a college athlete?
Coach Cole does a great job of showing, I feel like, guys like me who, want to get into coaching someday, how a great head coach runs a program. He's always on his phone. He's making calls. He's trying to set up this, trying to set, this, fundraiser up and set up, this recruiting trip and this camp for our guys, and, talking with Mike, Gabe, and Kyle about what we're working on in practice. And, he's constantly thinking about how to better every aspect of the program. And I think that's something that people kind of overlook because it's not all directly wrestling related, but it's something that he does a phenomenal job at. And I think it's a huge reason why he brought Cornell from, a below average Division I program to a team that can compete for a national title.
What makes your relationship with Coach Gray special?
I've worked with him for, years now, since I was in high school, coming up to RTC, and he's always believed in me. There's been days where, I've had a bad day in the room and, I might not have even really believed in myself. And, he's always had my back and he's always been invested in me. And, now I've gotten close with his family. And in all honesty, I think it's just the fact that the way he coaches works best for me. And our relationship has kind of grown past the coach and a wrestler where, we're friends now. And, I think that honestly helps the coach-athlete relationship, is how much, I trust him and how much he believes in me. I think that's something that's really big, for my success.
Do you spend quite a bit of time with Kyle Dake?
Yeah. Kyle's a great leader. This was his first year back on staff, and, he's been a huge help for me. He's someone who I can always depend to, beat me up in the room, and he can correct my wrestling. And, he's phenomenal. He's one of, if not literally the best. He's probably the best guy I've ever wrestled in my entire life. So, I can have a perfect day of wrestling and give up 100 points to Kyle anyway. So it's great to have Kyle in the room because he's always got something new for me to work on. I could do everything perfect against Kyle and he'll still be able to find something for me to get better at. So, I appreciate his willingness to, get in there and wrestle with me. And, he's always willing to help. And I appreciate that a lot.
Yianni, you roll around a lot with Jordan Oliver, I imagine. Was that more uncomfortable wrestling him in the semifinals than you imagined it would be?
It was something we had talked about, in all honesty. I remember, sitting down with Jordan one day after we wrestled, and he was like, hey, I know we're going to wrestle and make a world team this year, and, we need each other. He knows I need him, and he knows he needs me to, get better and to keep training. So he's honestly been great for me. There's never any tension. There was never any awkwardness. Even 5 minutes before we were wrestling, he came over, gave me a hug, and was like, let's go scrap. He's always been a great sport about it, and he's done a lot for me. So, that match was not nearly as awkward as, a lot of people may have thought. It was just two guys going out there scrapping and then, right back to being friends afterwards.
Does he help you during the college season too? Do you think he elevates your game this year as you won an NCAA championship?
100%. He was a guy my size. I was talking about Kyle, where I could do everything perfect and still get beat. Jordan was somebody my size that challenged me every day. There was never a day where if I wrestled Jordan, I knew I was going to have to scrap that day. And, no matter how good or bad I wrestled, I had to get in there and fight for every point, every position, every takedown. So having Jordan in the room was great because it was somebody, who's within 10 or 15 pounds of me that could always battle with me. And anytime I needed him, he was willing to get in there and wrestle with me. So again, I'm appreciative of that, his willingness to help me grow as a wrestler.
How exciting is this for you just to be able to get out and wrestle freestyle again?
I love wrestling freestyle. I think it's my best sport, or my best style of wrestling. And I think it's definitely the one I enjoy the most too. It plays into my game well, none of the leg passing, none of the rolling across your back. And, it's big dependent on neutral wrestling. And, your ability to wrestle in a lot of positions. And I think that's something that I can do. And that's how, my style is based off, is my ability to wrestle in a lot of positions. So I'm so happy to be back competing freestyle again.
Break that down a little bit, the folk style to freestyle comparison. And as an example, just going out there and watching some of the technique, you'll see guys hitting inside trips. And if that was the college season, you'd never see that happen. You'd never even see someone try that. Why is there such a difference between what is able to take place on the mat when there's a freestyle match versus a folk style match?
So I think that freestyle rewards wrestlers for hitting moves more. For example, if you're talking about inside trip, I can hit inside trip. You can land on your back, roll off, and I don't even finish the takedown. I got 4 points for that. Whereas in folk style, I can hit a beautiful inside trip. You land on your back, but you catch my foot, leg pass, and we get into this crazy scramble. And now, maybe you take me down. So I think the beauty of freestyle is that skills get rewarded more. Well, execution of proper skill is like kind of the way I always thought about it. Like, if I hit a good technique, even if, maybe I might not score a folk style takedown, I'm rewarded for exposing you or putting you in danger. Whereas in folk style, I think there's a lot more ways that guys can kind of squirm out of takedowns or, put you in a weird position where, maybe I did something right, but because you're able to roll across your back, it changes the move and it changes the position. So I think the biggest thing with freestyle is that hitting moves clean is more rewarded than freestyle, in my opinion.
Yianni, we've seen you do some pretty innovative things here in the last, since you've come onto the college scene, but particularly in the last couple months. Who do you look towards around the world, around the wrestling world, in terms of innovators?
To be honest, growing up, I watched a lot of Russian wrestling, and I still watch a lot of international wrestling, just kind of as a hobby, honestly. But I've tried to get away from it a little bit, only because these are the guys that I'm going to have to wrestle to win a world title. So I've worked on trying to get away from that mindset of the Russians are so good. Oh, this guy's so good, because in the end, if I want to be the best in the world, I have to also be that good. So, I've tried to start developing as an individual and, kind of creating my own style. But I think a lot of that, weird stuff that, people see me do and, I put myself in on matches, I think is just a product of being willing to wrestle in different positions in the room, not conceding when a guy takes me down or, not really just in general, not conceding any position, fighting to hold good position. And when a guy breaks through with a good position, being willing to extend wrestling and continue the flurry out until I score.
You had a great comment about getting better every single day, even if you're not on the mat. What do you do to get better every day? Do you watch a lot of film? Do you visualize? What is it that you do?
I just try to be self-critical. I have great coaches around me and people who, are very invested in my wrestling career. And because of that, I have guys like my dad and, the coaches at Cornell, Mike, Kyle, Coach Cole, Gabe, who are always, at any moment I could call any of those guys and be like, hey, what's something you think I should work on? And they could tell me, every day I talk to Mike, hey, what do you think I should work on today? If I'm off the mat, like, hey, maybe I'm going to get an ice bath and stretch and, get my body loose, get myself feeling good. Every day it's, what can I do? And, also part of that is I have to take that upon myself and, be willing to look within myself and, understand what I need to do, because at some point, if I want to coach and if I want to be a successful senior level athlete, I have to be independent. So I think it's a combination of being willing to take orders from your coaches and trusting them blindly. And then also, thinking what I need to do and what I can do, to make myself better.
I've heard you're a wrestling junkie, but how far does that go? Do you study the history? Do you know our early pioneers in the sport? How far back do you go as far as studying the sport?
I've watched wrestling technique, probably the earliest stuff was, the 80s, early 80s. And it was more of just looking for answers. If I found myself in a position and I didn't understand it, I tried to find someone that did. And, that kind of, and then the other thing too is, just this innate curiosity that, we all have. We're like, oh, what was that? And then, you'll watch Drubal Sarsatiev at the 1988 Olympics hit something, and you're like, oh, click on his name and start watching him wrestle, and then you'll find another guy and another guy and another guy, and before you realize it, you're watching the Tbilisi tournament from 1984. You're like, what is going on right now? And I think that curiosity kind of can take you places if you're willing to take the time to go there.
How about Dave Schultz? It seems like you're a Dave Schultz-esque guy. Have you studied him much?
To be honest, I used to watch a lot of older wrestling, and I watched a lot of it. Probably almost to the point where I couldn't find any more of the matches on YouTube. But yeah, I watched a lot growing up. Yeah.
Who's the number one guy that you focus in on? Let's just say an American. Who's the guy that you emulate and like to watch the most?
Of the Americans?
Yeah.
There's a lot. So I guess my biggest problem is that I kind of take bits and pieces from everybody. So I don't know that I have one guy that I specifically watch. Like one guy that comes to mind, Kyle Dick. I think it's more, I take a little bit from Kyle and a little bit from, Kyle Snyder, a little bit from Burroughs, a little bit from Taylor. You go back a little bit from, you're talking about Dave Schultz. I take bits and pieces from every guy and try and talk about how I can adapt that to my wrestling. You know what I mean?
How about your dad? I've heard that your dad had a big influence on your mentality and how you view the sport. What was his parenting style like to get you to this point?
If not for my dad, I would be below. I probably wouldn't even be wrestling, honestly. He got me into the sport when I was super young, and he cares so much, and he sacrificed a lot for me and my brothers, and he honestly taught me wrestling. He was my coach from age 6 until I left for Cornell. It was my dad. It was me and my dad. He invested a lot. He built a wrestling room out of our garage. He spent hours and hours a day studying and learning so he could teach me and make me better. And, he did a lot for me technically. And then on top of that, he's my dad. He kind of taught me to have an outlook on life where, you're constantly looking to improve. And, he's always preached humility and kind of greed in the sense that, expect more from yourself. And I think that translates a lot to wrestling really well, where, you want to be humble and you want to always be respectful of the people that you're around and be respectful of what you're doing, but at the same time, demand more from yourself. You win a national title, win another one. You win the U.S. Open, you can make the world team. Make the world team, win a world title. Win a world title, win a Olympic gold medal. And, that came from my dad, just instilling what I think are, really good values to have for just as a kid growing up, but also, to make me successful as a wrestler. So, I couldn't thank my dad enough for everything he's done for me.
Did he go all in on wrestling, though? Let's just say you found that baseball was a better your fit. Do you think he would have built you a baseball diamond or gone that direction, or were you guys all in for wrestling early on?
I mean, he definitely loved wrestling. He wrestled in college, and he actually used to say this when I was younger. He used to have me wrestle because he thought it would teach me those good values, about hard work and discipline and focus. But at the same time, I really loved it the first year I wrestled. I started wrestling. I was like, man, this is great. I love doing it. And, I couldn't remember a time where I didn't want to do it. So that being said, I really don't know how to answer that one.
Yianni, what was it that hooked you about wrestling? What do you love about it the most?
I think it's this very unique combination of an art form and really violent combat where, maybe you're going to wrestle a dude like Rutherford. He's going to go out there and punch you in the face for 6 minutes, and you have to get in there and battle for every position, every point. You know what I mean? And then you might turn around and wrestle a guy like Jordan Oliver, and you're getting put in these weird positions, and you're forced to continue the wrestling out and wrestle hard for 6 minutes, but also wrestle intelligently. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that combination of an art form and a combat. It's something that I don't think a lot of sports provide, and I think wrestling is very unique because of that, dynamic.
When you're in the moment, you're innovating on the fly, you're creating technique and creating scrambles and coming out on top. Do you ever have that opportunity to just appreciate it in the moment that, hey, this is pretty special what I was able to just accomplish?
In all honesty, there's been times in matches where I'm like, man, I can't believe I just did that. But, at the same time, I do weird stuff like that in the room and just don't realize that it's so crazy because it's, I guess it's just how I think about it. To me, it's not crazy, ridiculous wrestling. It's just continuing the action. So the one that people talk about is the one where I dove on my head to score on Jordan. To some people that might be this crazy thing that I, thought of and did. But for me, it's just, he had my leg in the air. I had to figure out a way to take him down. And I was willing to take that risk, thinking that it would pay out for me. And fortunately it did. I could have fallen on my head and rolled to my back and, that this conversation would be very different. So I think for me, it's just, it's just, I don't want to say it's what I do because I do other things as well, but I think I try to think about wrestling like that, where it's like, how can I score from every position?
When you get back to Ithaca after winning the U.S. Open, are you getting bombarded with people that want to talk to you and relive the matches just like you talked about with that Oliver scramble? Is that something that happens to you?
No,
I mean,
obviously our guys, are great supporters of me, but, they're my friends too. I get back and, I just go right back to being Yianni, I come home, I hang out with my friends. I do the same thing we do every day. I'll get the usual, hey, that was great, congrats. And then, I get back to being just treated like another guy on the team. And I appreciate that a lot. Our guys don't, I think it's a good dynamic to have. It keeps me from getting a big head. And, it just shows that my team likes me for me, Yianni Diakomihalis, the individual, and not Yianni, the wrestler.
What kind of things do you like to do with your friends outside wrestling?
So for my birthday, I saved up some money and we got a ping pong table. I probably play ping pong for 2 or 3 hours a day with my friends. We'll just have different guys on the team every day come over. We play ping pong and, just stuff like that. Could play video games, whatever. I like spending time around my teammates. So, whatever everyone's doing, I'll just kind of hop in on it. It could be ping pong, it could be going to dinner, it could be video games, it could be just literally hanging out at the house and, BSing with each other. But I like being around my team. They're a great group of guys and, I'm thankful to be a part of it.
Hey, I love table tennis too. Do you guys make sure you guys use legit rules where you have to throw the ball up in the air a certain amount, or do you guys kind of fudge on the rules a little bit?
I'm the only one that throws the ball up. Everyone else just smacks it out of their hand. I don't complain because, what are you going to do? But that's funny you said that. I always throw the ball up because that was how my dad taught me how to play ping pong. I didn't realize that people didn't do that until I got here.
Yeah, because there's rules on how you're supposed to play. You can't put spin on the ball when you're serving, and that drives me nuts when people do that. Yeah,
and you got to cross the table, the whole deal.
Yeah. So,
my dad taught me real ping pong.
How good are you? Can you take these guys in table tennis?
I'm not bad. I've been getting better. Mostly because the ping pong table's in my house, but I've been getting better. The training's starting to pay off, and I think by the final X, I might be able to take out some really good guys in some ping pong. Maybe try my hand at the ping pong Olympic team.
I mean, yeah. What we always talk about how wrestling influences other parts of your life. How does table tennis influence other parts of your life?
Oh well, I mean, I couldn't even give her a joke answer to that one. No, it's great. It's something that no matter what, say I had a bad day at practice, you just smack a ping pong ball around with one of the guys I live with and take my mind off things. It's something that it's simple. It's a repeated motion. You just sit there and smack a ping pong ball all day, and it's something nice that I can just go home and relax and not think about the day. And if I had a good day, I can go home, kick some butt in ping pong, and then call it an even better day.
How's your health right now? Your freshman year, of course, you had that storyline of tearing your ACL in the NCAA championships and winning it. Do you feel like you're healthy right now?
Yeah, I honestly think that this is probably the best I've felt, since I had knee surgeries. My training's been really good. My body's been holding up very well. And, the trainers here at Cornell did a great job, keeping me on track and keeping my knee healthy. Not only leading up to, me being cleared, but even after I got cleared, staying on top of it and, keeping me in the right shape. And my surgeon did a great job. So overall, the process of my knee surgery went really smoothly. And honestly, I wouldn't change anything about it if I had to.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier the RTC practices before you ever got to Cornell. What do you remember about your early days coming in into that room and scrapping with college guys and guys out of college?
I remember coming in, and I would come in on, like, there was one day a week where out of season, I would just come in and wrestle with Mike Gray. And we'd start off drilling, and it would just kind of escalate into live without me knowing. And I would just be dog tired. I'd get in the car, my dad would yell at me, like, how'd you get so tired? Like, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't help it. Just, it's funny. It was kind of, an early exposure to college training where, Mike's stuffing my face in the mat, and, he's pulling my shirt over my head. And, just the usual stuff that happens when, you're wrestling in the college room and you're the young guy. And, it's, in hindsight, it's funny because I remember being a little kid and being like, man, this sucks. I'm not used to getting beat up like this. But, I really think that was a big growth period for me, getting that college exposure early and having a guy, really put the heat on me at a young age is something that, doesn't really happen in high school wrestling. But, I think it prepared me a lot for college.
I think Rob Cole told me down at South Beach a couple years ago that you'd spent some nights in the facility. How many nights have you actually slept in the wrestling facility?
Three times. I'm not really going to say I'm proud of any of those three, but I have slept in the Friedman Center 3 nights.
So what happened?
In my wrestling career. Just one time I was just there working out. Well, actually, the first 2 times I was just there working out, shower changed. I was tired, and we have a couch in the back room that I just fell asleep on. My roommates were like, what the heck? Like, where are you? They're super worried about me. I'm sleeping in the back room at the Friedman Center. And then, this year after the Lehigh match, I wasn't really happy with how I wrestled. And I remember coming back, and I was just sitting there, like literally sitting on the match at Friedman, staring at a wall, just thinking about, the match and what I could have done better and, the things I wasn't doing well. And apparently just drove myself to the point where, I felt like I blinked and I checked my phone and it was 8 a.m. and I was still sitting up against the wall at the Friedman Center. So, I guess I'm a little out there for sure, but what are you gonna do?
As far as just sticking around, of course you have 2 years of college eligibility left, but is the plan to just stay with Cornell after that? Is that kind of what your short-term plan might be?
Yeah, I mean, Cornell's got a great RTC. I have great people around me, but, wherever my training takes me, I think that Cornell's a great opportunity. I've like I say all the time, I have the best coaches in the world, if you ask me. So, I love this staff, and, if it stays how it is, then I would love to be a part of this program, for as long as I could.
Your finals matches the last couple of years are interesting because you've just had to stay in it, and we weren't sure if you're going to win, but it always felt like you knew how you were going to pull this out. This year in particular goes into overtime. You're going against a tough guy in Joey McKenna. How did you stay composed in that match to be able to get the victory and get your second championship?
So that's all the training, that's all the extra stuff that Mike has to do, the extra conditioning, the extra technique. And, I like before every match, if you look, you'll see he's in my ear, and, he's just telling me, he's like, no one prepares like you do. And I believe that. I believe that I'm the most prepared guy in the weight class, even if it's not true. Even if I know that it's not true, I convince myself of that. I think that's super important to believe that I can't be beaten. And obviously I know I'm not unbeatable. But if you ask me for the 6 minutes that I'm out there or the 7 minutes that I'm out there, I'll tell you no one can beat me. And I think, going into overtime, it's that, I'm stepping a line knowing that this guy can't beat me. And it's just a matter of time before I win the match. And, again, it's a little conceited, and it's a little bit of a stretch, but I genuinely believe that. And I don't think that you can achieve great levels of success without believing that no one can beat you.
So going back to the folk style freestyle, where you said you enjoy wrestling freestyle more than you do folk style, and that this is your style, do you feel because of that you're able to just open up and just let it fly, where maybe in folk style you're just locked into that style a little bit more and maybe you don't enjoy it, that maybe it inhibits you a little bit?
I try to wrestle freely regardless of, what style or who I'm wrestling or whatever, but I do think that there's aspects of freestyle and the freestyle season that, benefit me more. And, I think it's just the other thing too is the guys I'm wrestling are almost willing to put themselves in different positions because of the nature of freestyle, where you can kind of score from anywhere. And I think that favors me. The fact that a guy wrestling ties me, I can step behind the leg and put myself in a Merkle, and it's not a takedown, but it is in folk style. Or a guy gets under my leg and I can hip tip him, and there's points for me, but it's not points in folk style. I think it's just the fact that I can put guys in danger in a lot of different positions that maybe don't apply to folk style well. But that being said, even while I'm wrestling folk style, I'm still, regardless of the style, looking to score as many points as I possibly can. So, while there is that freestyle folk style divide, I don't think my mentality changes at all.
You got a big match coming up, Beat the Streets against Bajrang Punia from India, world silver medalist.
Yep.
What was appealing about that match that made you want to take part of this? And what do you think you have to do? What are going to be the keys to beating Bajrang?
I mean, it's a great test. The guy was the world silver medalist, and, rightfully so. He's been doing a great job this year. He won the Asian Games. He just won the Ali Aliyev tournament. So, he's a super tough opponent, and he's going to come out there and he's going to scrap with me. He's going to be on my head, underhook, push, pull, and he's going to go out there and wrestle hard for 6 minutes. And, that challenge is exciting. If my goal is to be a world champion, I shouldn't shy away from wrestling the best guys in the world. I should want to wrestle them. You know what I mean? And I think that this is a great opportunity and, early in my freestyle senior level career. And, I believe that if I can hand fight and stay in there and wrestle them for 6 minutes, that, I'll be able to come out on top. And I just have to be willing to fight, this match. This is going to be as much of a street fight as it is a wrestling match. So I've got to be ready for that.
How do you get off your shots? You talked about that after the U.S. Open, that you needed to get better at getting your shots off. How are you going to make those adjustments in just a few days?
Biggest thing for me is just keep my feet moving and not letting him hang on me. Guys like that are going to try to glue my feet to the ground, push and snap me, and, get me off. Like we say, keep me off my mark. And for me, it's going to be about keep my feet moving, keep my hands set, and keep my hands moving, and, just constantly advancing my position to the point where, eventually the takedowns are going to start presenting themselves to me.
Have you spent much time in New York City?
I actually used to go to Long Island a lot in high school to train with Vito Arusha, our 125 pounder. We kind of grew up not around each other. We lived 6 hours away from each other, but we grew up, training together through high school. And, every once in a while we would go into New York City. It's not far. It's one train ride for him. So, I've been around there, and it's super cool. I remember when NCAAs were in Madison Square Garden. That was actually the first national tournament that I ever went to. So, I'll be there again. And, it's a really cool atmosphere, and I'm glad to be able to wrestle there.
Coming off the U.S. Open, going in to Beat the Streets, are you tapering off a little bit? You just kind of taper down your training? Or are you kind of going in full swing here to get ready?
If anything, honestly, I tapered a little bit leading into the Open, making sure I felt good. And, it's going to be one more week of preparing for Bajrang, and then, you ramp it up a little bit. I'm 5 weeks out from Final X, so I have time to go through a full training cycle, where I burn the lungs, get myself into really great shape, and then start cutting back again to get ready for whoever I wrestle in Final X. So I think that, the way that this is set up is great for me, where I wrestle at the Open, get ready for a great test, wrestle in Bajrang, and then, after that, I'm 4 weeks out from Final X, and I can go through a good month of training and get ready to scrap with whoever comes out of the World Team Trials.
Does Rob Cole ever get on the mat and scrap with you a little bit, show you what he's got?
Oh, yeah. I get in there with Coach Cole, get in there and wrestle a little bit. Throw on the Tiger Bomb, get himself nice and loose and go in there and get you.
What are the chances you move up to a weight class next year? You going to stay at 41 or maybe bump up?
It's going to be up to the coaches, whatever they think is best for the team and whatever they think is best for my wrestling career. I could take the Olympic red shirt. I could wrestle 41, could wrestle 49. So, again, this is one of those situations where I trust that my coaches have my best interest in mind. So if they think I should wrestle 41 or 49, I'm going to believe them. If they think I should take the Olympic red shirt, I'm going to believe them. So, I trust them a lot with that decision and whatever they think is best for me.
Does the Olympic red shirt intrigue you at all?
Oh, yeah. I'd love to. I'd love to take that Olympic red shirt, compete overseas and, give myself the best opportunity to win the Olympic gold medal in Tokyo. But, that being said, if the coaches feel that the folk style season is better training for me, then I'll do that. So, I know I just said it, but whatever, I believe whatever they think is best, is really best for me.
Yeah. I mean, there wouldn't be a danger of you taking that Olympic red shirt and not wanting to come back and wrestle college, would there?
No, I know it's always like I love freestyle, but I'm going to finish my college career. I still got to get an education, get a degree. So, no matter what, I will. If I take that on the red shirt, I will 100% be back to folk style wrestling afterwards.
Your brother Greg is coming in at Cornell here in another year. What's his style like? What's he like? Can you kind of compare and contrast both of you?
He's more weird to wrestle than I am. He's got some really interesting, ways to get to duck unders and ways to get to legs, and he's so hard to finish on. I remember wrestling him when I was home, and I was like, dude, how do little 113-pound guys finish on you ever? He's got great skill, and he's got a huge upside in my opinion. I think that when he gets here and he's surrounded by college wrestlers and training in a college room every day, I think he's going to get a lot better.
You lost 3 matches in high school. Do you remember those losses and what you took away from those matches?
So in high school, I had 3 losses, and they were actually my 7th grade year. So in New York, you can wrestle varsity in middle school, right? So I lost twice to this kid. They were actually all from my little area too. Lost twice to this kid. His name was John Haas. I think he won a Division III national title, but I'm not sure. And then I ended up beating him my 8th grade year. And he was a junior or sophomore that year. And then at the state qualifier, I lost this guy. He's actually in my weight class this year. His name's Brian Landry. He wrestles at UB. He was actually in the blood round at NCAAs last year. So it's funny how, you see those guys pan out.
All right, man. We appreciate this time, and we wish you all the best. It was a blast watching you at the U.S. Open. You have 2 more years of eligibility. You can't wait to watch you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited for, the couple weeks to come here.
All right. Hey, we appreciate you joining us, Yianni.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. That was Yianni Diakomihalis, 2-time NCAA wrestling champion for Cornell. Another riveting interview with another great wrestler, but Yianni has his own take. He's fun, man. He's fun.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm glad we were able to snag him because he has a story and a narrative that we just want to see all the way through to the end. And I think with him being in the finals of Final X right now, we're guaranteed at least 2 more matches plus Beat the Streets. I don't know what he would do between that time, but I'm assuming that he's just going to prepare for Beat the Streets and then Final X, and we'll see if he is on the World Championship team. And if I know you're not a prediction guy, but with a weight class like that, I mean, who's going to come out on top at that 65 kilo weight class? It's pretty wide open right now. Oliver, Rutherford seem like the front runners right now.
Molinaro's in there. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good guys in there, and that's such a huge advantage to win that tournament out in Vegas.
Yeah.
He's sitting in a really good spot. Sit back, take his finals. Doesn't have to balance finals and final in the World Team Trials Challenge tournament. All he has to worry about is school and training.
He just gets to do that.
Living the life, living the dream.
And just bumping up to the next weight class, 70 kilograms, James Green has to go all the way through the gauntlet.
Yep.
And it's interesting. They kind of packaged it around thinking that James Green was going to be there. Of course, they knew Jordan Burroughs was going to be in the Lincoln Final X. But I think if James Green isn't there, I don't know if you're going to lose any fans, but I think you know what?
You might gain some. You might gain some just from the standpoint that Ryan Deacon's a Colorado native.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I mean, who would have thought that would have worked out as well as it did? So that's another interesting weight class because that's also wide open right now. 70 kilos is anyone's weight class right now. Nolf could win it. James Green could get back to that spot. Deacon's in a good spot there. So you have 3 guys that have potential to make that world team, and you could see making it as well. And then 74 kilos, seems like Imar's the guy that's willing to stick it out and be the guy that's going to challenge Jordan Burroughs. Don't necessarily think this is the year he's going to get it done, but kudos to him for sticking in there and making that his permanent weight class for right now.
One of the things that's interesting, we didn't touch upon this in the main part of the show there, the intro, but had a chance to talk to Rich Bender and Cody Bickley about the qualifying process for 2020 and some of the things that they've done to incentivize people to stay at their non-Olympic year weights, the World Championship year weights. I think they've done a lot of credit to USA Wrestling for what they've put in place. And so if you're a world medalist at an Olympic weight, you get the pass to the finals of the Olympic trials, the best of 3 series at the Olympic trials next year. And if you are a medalist at a non-Olympic weight, you get a pass to the semifinals of the challenge tournament at the Olympic weight. And so let's just say theoretically what happened a year ago happens this year, and Kyle Dake wins a world title at 79 and David Taylor wins a world title at 86 and Jaden Cox wins a world title at 92. And all 3 of them end up at the same weight class. They all say, you know what, we're going to go 86 kilos for 2020. I don't know that that's going to happen, but if they do, in that scenario, you'd have David Taylor sitting out until the finals, and you'd have Kyle Dake sitting out until the semifinals on one side of the bracket, Jaden Cox sitting out on the semifinals of the other side of the bracket. I think USA Wrestling nailed it with this one, where the last thing you wanted to see was all these guys moving around to Olympic weights in 2019. And then we don't, as the United States, we don't put our best team on the mat in Kazakhstan. But I think they've incentivized it to where everybody's, that medaled last year, all 12 of the medalists from Budapest have accepted their invitation to Final X at their weight class from a year ago.
Smart move. Because you do want to win world championships.
You don't want to just punt the world championships, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal, and you want to keep showing that having 10 weight classes is worthwhile. And if it gets watered down, it makes it less incentive to continue to go in that weight class. So Kudos to USA Wrestling for doing that. Any final thoughts as we part ways here for another edition? I want to make sure now that we're both on the track team here, I don't want to see too many lapses here and not having shows. There was extenuating circumstances, and it happens occasionally.
Rookie initiation.
Yeah, and there hasn't been any rookie hazing, so I'm hoping that doesn't. Yeah, I don't know what that'll
still
look
early.
Like. Yeah, it's still early, so maybe Shane Sparks has something up his sleeve that I don't know about. So,
could be.
Yeah.
You know what, Kyle? We went through this whole show. We did not mention the name Bo Nickel.
Oh, I'm glad you picked up on that. Thank you. He deserves to be talked about. Let's end with that.
Very impressive.
Yeah, and as we think about potential matchups, I don't see it being anything other than Bo Nickel and Jaden Cox at this point. And Bo Nickel's a guy that you are calling the most dangerous man on the planet. Maybe I'm making up those words, but you're calling him the most dangerous wrestler you have seen, going against maybe the most solid, defensively sound wrestler of our generation in Jaden Cox. He is hard to score on.
Uh-huh.
And what was the stat I think you pulled out in 2016? I don't think he got taken down.
Right. The Olympics. He did not.
He didn't get taken down.
Right.
So you're talking about a guy that's next to impossible to score on against a guy that's the most dangerous wrestler that you've seen, and one of the most that I've seen going head to head. That's a match you want to see numerous times.
And you think of Bo Nickel, you think of the high flying stuff, right? I mean, you think spladles and cradles and throws and all that flashy stuff that makes him so dangerous. But man, he showed some rock solid attacks out in Vegas. I was really impressed. So definitely looking forward to the possibility of having that matchup.
And with Jaden
we didn't even talk about Pat Downey.
Well, and we'll talk about Pat Downey, but we have to finish the thought on Bo Nickel against Jaden Cox. Going back to Jaden Cox, I watched your clip. I'm assuming you posted it on track of Jaden Cox getting the 10-second fall at the Pan American Championship. Was it 10 seconds?
Yeah.
If you had to go over under on 50, I'm going on the over on how many times I watched that. You're looking at a guy, and these are always fascinating conversations because I want to know what the level of that guy was. What country was he even from? It wasn't Puerto Rico.
Was it Peru? I'm not sure.
I think it was Peru,
remember.
but I felt like that guy was maybe a varsity wrestler in the U.S. He tries a snatch single on Jaden Cox, and then Cox hit him with a low single, and I mean he didn't know how to counter it. It was just so quick, and then he just is able to pin him right away. I just would be interested to know what his level is. I'd like to see what he does if he comes to the United States. Let's say he enters the U.S. Open. Does he win a match? You're shaking your head. No, I don't see him winning a match. So you're looking at a guy who's at the top of his game going against maybe a decent high school wrestler. Paraguay. Okay. Do you think he wins state in any state tournament?
I don't know. Didn't get to see enough of him to really tell. I mean, good 10 seconds.
Yeah.
His other match, he wrestles 27 seconds against a 2012 Olympic silver medalist. So
yeah.
We didn't get a large sample size of what Diego Ramirez Florentine can do.
Yeah, not a lot of intel there. But you're right about.
But he won a Pan Am bronze.
Well,
he won a Pan Am bronze.
Out of three people,
you can't take that away from him.
But
He's a Pan Am bronze medalist, Kyle, and you cannot take that away from him.
With 3 people in the weight class.
He doesn't have to tell people how many people were in his weight class.
Well, we are.
All he has to say is, I am a Pan Am bronze medalist, and the 2 guys who finished ahead of me, one is a world champ, the other is an Olympic silver medalist, and I finished 3rd behind those guys.
Yeah, there's some you got some street cred with that. You got some street cred. I just wonder if we could last longer against Jaden Cox if we just implemented a strategy of just run and get some cautions.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Like,
why wouldn't you do that?
Who was it that Burroughs wrestled the guy early in the tournament that it was just textbook if you were out there to see how long you could survive. It was circle, fake, circle, circle. And Jordan just stood there like pivoting around in the center circle. I think it might have been the guy from Ecuador, if I'm not mistaken, but it was just textbook. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, just
back up.
Go as long as possible because you know you're going to get throttled at some point, and it happened for both. All right, Pat Downey. What a story. You wrote this story, and man, what a journey he's had, because you're really talking about a guy that was the ultimate villain last year, and some of his tweets caught a firestorm, and I can't say that I was impressed with those tweets. I don't think anyone was, but you see him at the U.S. Open. He seems like a different guy. Jordan Burroughs is taking pictures with him. Kyvan Gadsden's taking pictures with him. He just looks different physically, because I think he is, because he's in shape now. He just seems more at peace right now, and sounds like he's made some internal changes, Andrew.
Yeah, I think the thing that probably, and I think I probably speak for a lot of people, the one thing you don't want to see is just somebody not reaching their potential, right? When you see somebody that's got a ton of ability and yet the results aren't matching up to that ability, and there are things that you think can be changed. You know, you even said like lifestyle habits needed to change, and, you know, credit to him for looking inward and saying, you know what am I doing this for? If I'm going to continue to do it this way, I've either got to do it right or I've got to figure out something else. I got to go do something else, because he finished 7th, I think, last year at the Open, and said it was his worst performance at the senior level. And, you know, he's a guy that, you know, a year ago is not coming from behind in a 7-0 deficit against Miles Martin. No way, no how does that happen. And, you know, it wasn't like he got it all back in one big chunk or took him down and turned him 3 times. It was chipping away, a push out here, a takedown there, another takedown, a couple turns. All of a sudden, Pat Downey's coming from behind in the final minute to win a 9-7 match against Miles Martin. There is no way that's happening in 2018. But, I asked him, I said, confidence comes from preparation. And he was always confident in the past. And he said, but with me, it didn't, though. He goes, I had no reason to be confident. And he goes, now I've got a reason to be confident.
Yeah. And alongside of that was where he talked about how the Iowa wrestling room influenced him. I didn't really think that he would have paid that much attention, but boy, it sounded like, what'd he say? He said he saw those guys and how everything around them influences their wrestling and how they live the lifestyle, all the things you hear Iowa talk about. And the standard Iowa line is, hey, it's a lifestyle. And I think he picked up on it.
And one thing that didn't make it into the story, though, is, we talked about how he said Tom Brands came up to him out in Vegas and said something along the lines of like, you got to go win go win a tournament now, get the next best thing. And by that, like, Pat had set his sights on winning an NCAA title. And he talked about growing up in Baltimore, he would go to Ciparelli's, Italian restaurant that's been in business for 80 years and opened by the grandfather of Rico Ciparelli, who won an NCAA title for Iowa in 1987. And Pat says there's a photo up in that restaurant of Rico winning an NCAA title in 1987. He goes, there's not a photo of him winning his U.S. Open title in 1989. And so that's Pat's way of saying he's at this point trying to get the next best thing. Certainly the goal that his dad put in his mind at a young age was to become an NCAA champion, and he didn't check off that box. He got to the NCAA tournament once, finished fifth. And I think Pat would be the first to tell you that he was capable of much more than that. And so he's got a little over a year left to compete in wrestling, maybe a year left to compete in wrestling. You want to see it through 2020. Then he's going off to MMA. He said he just doesn't want to leave this sport with any regrets. And I think he has some already, but he has a chance to change how the story ends. So it's good that we're seeing a better version of Pat Downey, one that's much closer to optimal Pat Downey than what we've seen in the past.
And will the story end with him wrestling David Taylor in the finals at Final X? I think he still has some process to go through. We'll
win 2 matches. Yeah. But that will be one that there'll be some guys coming for him down there too. Sam Brooks, Miles Martin, Nick Heflin again.
Yeah.
So
glad you brought those guys up because we wanted to give them. And then Adam Kuhn, we haven't brought him up either. There's a guy that
you mentioned him in the Greco part.
Yeah.
Though, but you didn't mention his performance in Vegas.
Yeah, and he's going to do both styles. And I like that, man. He just says, I like to wrestle. And
yeah.
People question, well, why would you do both? It's just, why wouldn't you do both? He has skills in both. He's a returning silver medalist. He's got a bye to the finals. Let's see what happens. And I think it's going to be fun. If he can be better prepared or just have a different scenario for Gwiz, I think he can challenge him. I still think Gwiz is the guy there. I still think he's going to make the world team in the freestyle side, but it's fun when you get great talent like that sticking around, and you want to keep it competitive. And there's just still going to be some heavyweights that we didn't see at U.S. Open that we might see, namely, assuming Gable Steveson has an opportunity to be in the challenge tournament in Raleigh, but we'll see what happens there, Andrew.
Gable Steveson is qualified as 2018 Junior World team member. So he's in for World Team Trials in Raleigh. And the other thing, Final X, Kyle. One thing that's nice for Adam Kuhn, this year he doesn't have to do both styles in the same weekend. Remember a year ago where he wrestled the Greco trials down in Tulsa, then made his way out to Lehigh to wrestle Gwiz the next day, and he had to cut weight. And
you're a storyteller.
If he gets to that point, right?
Well,
he's got to get to that point first.
But great storylines here across the board. It's there's just so many directions we can go with a lot of these stories that are coming up for this international season. So enjoy Andrew Hamilton's journey as he tells the story along the way.
And Kyle Klingman too.
Yeah. I know. But for me, I'm looking forward to hearing your take on the story. So
and likewise.
You're my storyteller. So
all right.
We've had a fun time with Yianni Diakomihalis. I guarantee you he will be back on the mat at some point. It might even be later this year, depending on what his results are. As always, for Andrew Hamilton of Track Wrestling, I am Kyle Klingman. You have been listening to On the Mat.
This show is part of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MatTalkOnline.com.